Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah, and at 16, I support my parents financially. I am able to do this because I have a successful YouTube channel, and I make a lot of money from it. I know it sounds cool, but I want to tell you about the ins and outs of life as a YouTuber. It all started the day my father lost his job. He had a high position in a furniture company, but because of one mistake, he was fired on the spot, despite his excellent track record. My mother, on the other hand, worked as a regular salesperson because she lacked a college diploma. As a result, we had to drastically reduce our spending. Earlier, I could easily afford high-end items. Now, I couldn't even afford a tuna sandwich at my favorite eatery anymore. My mom's pay was low, and Dad struggled to get a job for a long time due to a terrible reference from the furniture company. But he couldn't stay unemployed for long. As a result, he found work on a building site, but my dad didn't last long there. He was already in poor health, and he threw his back out at the construction site with all that physical exertion. He even started experiencing chest pains. Once after a shift, he couldn't get out of bed for a long time, and he had to quit for the sake of his health. This kind of life didn't suit me at all. I didn't want to have all these limitations. Our family even had to sell the car, so I had to start walking to school. I didn't like that at all. Furthermore, I had to continuously refuse to go any place with my friends because I had just a few cents in my wallet, and I was quite ashamed. There was a time where we didn't have food in the house. My mother's paycheck was due in one day, and we couldn't afford to buy bread or milk at the time. We wanted to scream because the feeling of crushing misery was so strong. We knew that things weren't going to get any better. From here, it was all downhill. I made the decision to alter our lives right then and there, and for some reason, I felt starting my own YouTube channel would be the simplest and fastest way to do so. What a naive knucklehead I was. I just got a few hundred views and approximately the same number of subscribers. No one was interested in watching videos about the life of an ordinary girl. Then, I decided to change tactics and made my channel about a princess who became a beggar. Who would have thought that people would be interested in looking at a former rich girl who has to learn how to lead the life of a poor person? I bought bad food on camera, tried cheap fast food for the first time, hunted for discounts in stores, and even once got into a fight over branded shoes that were being sold for almost nothing. After that last video, my channel suddenly started gaining momentum. Subscribers even gave me various tasks, and I did them for money. True, once I had to make and drink a seafood cocktail. I had never tasted anything more disgusting in my life. Even hamburgers didn't seem so terrible to me. And one subscriber sent me $1,000 and told me to go to school wearing the worst secondhand clothes I could find for $1,000. I was ready to buy all the secondhand clothes and wear them to school every day. Of course, a lot of people looked at me strangely and whispered, but my friends knew that I was doing it for my channel. And believe it or not, even supported me. They also came to school wearing bad clothes so that I wouldn't stand out so much. The subscribers were moved by our friendship and sent much more money. In just a few months, every day, around 100,000 individuals subscribed to me and observed my life. But as I began to receive decent money from the channel and even advertising orders, portraying the beggar became increasingly difficult. Then I made the decision to tweak the format once more. Now, I mostly make films on how I supported my parents when I was 16. And it was true that my father couldn't work since he had badly injured his health working in construction. He had trouble even getting around the home. Mom had to quit to look after him, but she didn't want to do it until the last possible moment because she didn't believe that my channel could support the whole family. However, when I showed them hundreds of dollars, they started calming down because of this. My subscribers split into two camps. Some chastised my parents, while others sympathized with them and complimented me. Some gullible subscribers were so moved by our plight that they sent huge amounts of money. In front of the camera, I spent the money on medicine for my father, and on myself behind the camera. I wanted to make money in the first place so I wouldn't have to deprive myself of anything. Clothes, cosmetics, luxurious suites, and cutting-edge technology. All of a sudden, I was able to afford everything. Yes, of course, I didn't forget about my parents, but they didn't appreciate the fact that they were pleading with me for help. But I also begged once, so what's bad about it? I constantly repeated, and my mother talked about pride and that they should support their child, not vice versa. As a result, she basically refused my money, and we argued a lot. Once my mom got so angry that she didn't speak to me for several days. I couldn't even complain to her about my problems and ask for help with a homework assignment for art, which I got a bad grade, by the way. And that's when my patience ran out. I didn't understand them. We had good money. We have the option of continuing to live our lives as we have done in the past. What else were they looking for? Finally, I panicked and told my mother that she could go back to work and that my father could hire a part-time nurse. I didn't like it, but she consented. For good reason. This has just harmed our relationship further. My father needed to buy some pricey medicine one day. I intended to give the money to my mother, but she refused, claiming that she makes enough money on her own. However, her meager salary was not enough for the pills. I hadn't turned off the camera, so the whole argument ended up on tape. We fought for a long time, but then my mother had to suck it up and ask me for money for the medicine. I felt like I had one and began to scold my mother for her stupid pride. In the end, I didn't give her the money. Instead, I decided to do everything myself to teach her a lesson. Mom got angry with me, and I went to the pharmacy happily. Here they would know how to allow for pride and wouldn't refuse my help. Subscribers made real chaos in the comments. Many condemned me for my heartlessness. My mother urged me to stop photographing everything, despite the fact that others supported me, because I provided my services. That evening, I rudely responded that I was making a lot of money on it, and that, believe it or not, I wasn't going to ditch the channel on a whim. She was in tears as the result of my refusal. So, what nonsense was it when we said we have money? A wonderful existence. And she was in tears? It wasn't just about the station, though. As I previously stated, I have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, many of who live in the same city as me. People began to treat our lives as if they were a soap drama, and we became well known on the streets. And while this basically didn't affect Dad since he was constantly at home, sometimes all the attention was very hard on Mom. Some customers would come to the store where she worked and tell her what they thought of her. She got called irresponsible, arrogant, and childish because she and Dad were living off of my income. I tried to convince her to not pay attention to them, but it was difficult to convince my mother of something. She tried to not let them film her and didn't ask me for anything else. As a result, we even had different shelves in the refrigerator. I had quality food on my shelf, lots of fruits and vegetables, and they had cheap bad food with a lot of harmful additives. I felt sorry for my parents, but they refused to accept my help. Even my father sided with my mother. It became more and more difficult to support them due to their stupid stubbornness. This caused my father's condition to get worse because my mother couldn't afford some of the medicines for him. It all ended up coming to a boiling point. I expressed everything I thought about them and about this stupid situation. And if it weren't for your pride, everything would be fine. I shouted and then bought the pills, but not on camera. The subscribers were worried because I started releasing material less often. So how am I going to release it if neither of my parents appear on camera? As a result of this, my income and activity both fell. I tried to change the focus of the videos to something else, but the public was more interested in seeing a teenage daughter care for two adults, and they demanded it. Then I decided to surreptitiously record them as they brazenly filled the entire refrigerator with high-quality products, threw their belongings out of the closet, and hung regular clothing in their stead. I had a feeling they wouldn't throw anything away, and I was correct. Mom was taken aback, but she remained silent. She calmly retrieved food from the refrigerator and dressed in the lovely gowns I had purchased for her earlier in the day. She even began to leave for work in a good mood. But in the evening, she was sad again. Apparently, she felt low because of the customers who constantly tried to tell her how to live and what she should be doing differently. I was getting pretty sick of it, and I decided to take revenge on them. I installed my iPhone in an inconspicuous place next to my mother's cashier and filmed how these people condemned her and even insulted her. I posted the video on my channel, and my subscribers began to stand up for my mother and my whole family. Oh, how many nasty things people said about these customers. You have no idea. And you know what? They suddenly shut up and started coming to the store just to buy something. My mom became much calmer, and she even thanked me. She eventually grasped the value of my channel and stopped hiding from the camera. She began to assist me more actively in filming, but I had to ask her to leave in order to increase the number of views on the channel. Make it appear as if she was fired. Mom was adamant about not taking that step for a long time, but I was able to persuade her when I showed her how many views the videos received while she wasn't working and how many they were receiving now. The difference was now quite apparent. She quit her work, returned home with a sad expression on her face, and informed everyone on the video how she was fired. But she was even happier because it meant once again she could look after father. As expected, views increased, but that was not the most important thing. It was important for me that my parents had already accepted the position of our family and stopped resisting my help. Mom seemed like she had resigned to herself, but father still didn't like it. He felt terrible that they were working, and he was of no use to my mother, and I had to talk to him for a long time. In the end, he gave up. Finally, he could relax. For many years, he worked 12 hours a day without a vacation, and he deserved that kind of rest, and I gladly continued working on the channel and supporting my parents. Do you think it's okay for teenagers to support their parents and not vice versa? Share your opinion in the comments, like this video, and don't forget to share it with your friends.
Emily Ashworth stood at the window of the cottage, gazing out at the garden and drinking her morning tea. She loved living in rural England. Even though she hardly ever saw anyone, she never felt lonely. She listened to the birds singing and watched as rabbits hopped across her lawn. She had never married, but she didn't regret it. Instead, she had chosen to dedicate her life to looking after the cottage and its contents. She had felt very privileged and special when Lord Blackwood had asked her to take over his property. Even though she was sometimes a little concerned about what was hidden there, she knew that it was of immense importance. Whenever she began to feel concerned, she would force herself to push the thoughts to the back of her mind and get on with the task of taking care of the cottage. She finished her cup of tea and put it into the sink to wash for later. There would be plenty of time to do the chores, but the first thing that she had to do was check on Lord Blackwood's collection. As she did every morning, she went downstairs to the underground vault to check on its contents, and as she walked among the artifacts, she marveled at some of the things she saw. There were plants and animals that she had never even known had existed, weird creatures of different shapes and sizes. She never questioned how they had come to be there. She just accepted that it was her job to keep them safe until Lord Blackwood could return. When she reached the section where the books were kept, she picked one up and opened it. A cloud of dust sprang from its pages, causing her to sneeze. She loved the smell of the old books and loved reading them. Her mind devours the information held within their pages. "Come on, Emily, you don't have time to be reading now." She closed the book and carefully put it back in its place, taking care not to dislodge the books on either side. She had almost got to the end of the vault, checking everything as she went, when she heard a loud knocking coming from upstairs. "I wonder who that could be. We don't get many visitors around here." Emily went back upstairs, locking the door to the vault behind her. When she reached the top of the stairs, whoever it was started hammering on the door again. Hold on, I'll be there in a second." When she opened the door, she saw 3 men in suits standing there. 5 days later, she died of heart failure. Otherwise known as a variable neon slug, it measures approximately 11.7 centimeters in length. There are no physical differences between SCP-1867 and any other member of its species. The subject is sapient and capable of telepathic communication with the same range as a typical human voice. It identifies itself as Lord Theodore Thomas Blackwood, a British explorer and naturalist who speaks with terminology and style appropriate to late 19th century England. It is generally friendly and cooperative with researchers. SCP-1867 makes repeated claims of past exploits and accomplishments, including service in the Second Opium War, as well as exhibitions to remote regions of the world and encounters with various rare creatures and uncontacted peoples. Despite the questionable validity of many of its claims, SCP-1867 has shown in-depth knowledge of geography, zoology, botany, archaeology, anthropology, and linguistics relating to its claimed regions of explorations, as well as more esoteric fields such as obscure mythology, mysticism, and cryptozoology. SCP-1867 does not seem to realize or willfully ignores any inconsistencies in its own recollections, as well as any events or information dating after approximately 1910. The subject's hazard rating is green. It is to be contained in a small aquatic specium tank environment, and care requirements should be identical to that of non-anomalous members of the species. Associated items will be placed in secure storage, Vault 16, and amenities available upon request. All descriptions of anomalous persons, places, or objects made by SCP-1867 must be correlated by at least 2 other sources before resources may be allocated for further research. When requesting to give proof of its exploits, SCP-1867 provided an address in rural England, claiming that it would be more than willing to donate its collection that could be found. Their investigation of the address led to a cottage owned by one Miss Emily Ashworth, who claimed to be keeping the house of Lord Blackwood. Further questions failed to reveal any details of SCP-1867's nature or origins beyond what information the subject had already provided. Miss Ashworth unfortunately died of heart failure 5 days after Foundation agents began investigations. Investigation of the cottage revealed an underground vault containing over 3,000 artifacts, zoological and botanical specimens, a library containing over 5,000 items, and a functional, if outdated, laboratory. All materials within the collection were catalogued, removed, and relocated by the Foundation over the course of 3 weeks. A full listing of items recovered from SCP-1867's collection may be found in Document 1867-VL. A summary of noteworthy items is as follows: 116 unknown species of plants, 107 unknown species of insects, 35 handwritten journals containing recordings of every event described by the subject. Written accounts match with verbal say variations and exaggerations on the part of SCP-1867 in retelling and have dated to the appropriate time period of the events described. 20 kilograms of processed opium, a collection of firearms of makes and models not correlating with any known manufacturers, including 3 wide-bore muskets marked as Dr. B.T. Moth's effective particle destabilizers. These items are non-functional, including detailed globes of Mercury, Venus, and Mars, and the Galilean moons, accompanied by notes detailing possible paths of surface exploration. A heavy modified 4-seahorse carriage containing instruments of unknown purpose. A note attached to the door reads on the fritz, "Speaking with Henry" in handwriting matching that of the journals. 4 agents were killed after the discovery of an unknown object, causing it to become activated. When questioned about the item, SCP-1867 response was, "I did warn you to be careful around my collection." SCP-1867's response was, "I did warn you to be careful around my collection. That thing nearly took my head off and walked back in '97 when I found it." On the 5th of June 2012, one of the Foundation's leading agents, Dr. Wilson, conducted an interview with SCP-1867. The following is a transcript of the interview. "Good morning, Lord Blackwood," said Dr. Wilson. "Good morning, Doctor. Wonderful to see you. Come in. Have yourself a seat. Now, if I remember correctly, the last time you were here, I was telling you about the time I was captured by the Ubila tribe of the Congo, replied SCP-1867. Actually, I have some questions about the story today. Our research turned up no trace of these people. They don't seem to exist. Of course not. There weren't any of the Ubula left after the village was attacked by Mochi. Remember, I still regret not being able to bag that monster when I had the chance. It is a persistently elusive creature. That's a stretch, sir. Do you have any corroborating evidence? Just to make sure what you're saying is true. There's always a chance that your vault was filled with fake nonsense. I would never fabricate any of my work. Why? It's against the very heart of being a naturalist. While I am repeatedly amazed by your institution here, you seem to be missing the explorer's spirits. When I scaled the Himalayas in search of the monks of the Golden Mountain, did I worry about what others had said about them? Of course not. I went and found out for myself, climbed those mountains with my own 2 hands. Dr. Wilson paused for a while before continuing. You do realize you're a sea slug, right? Good heavens, boy. Have you been drinking? That's utterly ridiculous. If you can't be bothered to be sensible, I have no reason to speak with you. Go get yourself a nice cup of tea and sober up. What do you think about that SCP case? Please leave your comments below.